be respectful of everybody's time. So we can go ahead and get started then. Jordan, if you want to pull up the agenda, there you go. Thank you. Just a quick reminder, first of all, an introduction. Ms. Remack, I can't see your face on my screen yet, but I know you're there. So I want to introduce to the rest of the task force that's here that doesn't know Ms. Remack is a new board appointment by the Lieutenant Governor. She's had introduction by fire hose drinking from the water or the fire hydrant for the past two months to from a work session in December and a full board meeting day, and then a big one yesterday, along with some training, additional governance training, and so forth. So, and then today. So, and then she's been appointed to serve as the chair on this legislative committee. So, thank you for your willingness to serve on the board, number one, and then to pick up this additional piece of work, number two. And then with respect to the legislative committee, Jean has also graciously agreed to serve on that too. So she can be our liaison from the legislative committee, or from the task force to the committee, and then the committee, I may have said that backwards a minute ago, but to let the task force work, let that be shared then with the committee, who will then make the final decision on what needs to go before the legislature this year. So again, welcome and thanks to both of you for your willingness to work with us and on this important work.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Lisa. Thank you so much. And I look forward to working with all of you. And I'm just especially happy that Jean is on board and we'll love to work with her too. So thanks again.
Yeah. Katie, do you and Christy want to introduce yourselves just so Kimberly will have a point of reference then from where you guys are?
Sure, I can jump in. Kimberly, hi, I'm Katie Poulos. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Republic Schools. We operate currently 3 schools in Mississippi: Reimagine Prep, Smilo Prep, and Smilo Collegiate, and have at least one more, but probably others coming forward, including Revive Prep that you all voted on yesterday. And I have actually sat in Lisa's seat, not in Mississippi, but in Arizona and in New Mexico doing the charter school authorizing work. So it's nice to be here and be able to work with y'all on this.
Wonderful.
Hi, and I'm Christy Hendricks. I'm the Executive Director for Midtown Partners, and we officially hold the charter for Midtown Public Charter School located here in Midtown. And Midtown Partners is a community development corporation, so we actually focus in 5 areas, but education is one of those areas that we focus on, thus the charter school.
Okay. All right, thanks so much. Anybody, did I miss anybody? Because I'm not looking at a gallery view here. I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Yeah, okay. All right, very good. Then we'll get rolling on through the agenda. And I don't think it's going to take us a whole lot of time. Ms. Remack and I had some time to kind of discuss what's happened prior to and how this whole process has evolved over time with the teams and their assignments, and the opportunity for the team leads and the team to reach out to others in the charter community and stakeholders in general to get feedback on each one of those code sections, and then in turn present out to the rest of the task force so that we could take a solid look at each section, get some recommendations for any technical amendments if there were any, and then the rationale for those decisions. And we're now at a point where we have taken a survey, and we know we have a general idea. Not everybody's completed the survey, but we have a general idea of where people are feeling and what they're thinking about going forward with any of this legislation or any of these technical amendments to the legislature. So that's kind of, again, a little bit of an overview and a sense of where we are. So maybe the first thing we want to do is take a peek at the survey results and look at those maybe alongside the technical amendments if we, I don't think, yeah, the summary is what we want to look at. Jordan, can you pull up 2 documents at the same time or not?
I can try to do that. It looks like we have another result too.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, good.
I don't think it's going to let me do two documents at the same time.
Okay. Okay. So do all of you have access to your summary sheet that I sent out? I think that was week before last. Yes, no? Do we need to somehow figure out a way to show
have
that?
it.
Y'all good? Anybody not have it? Okay. All right. So it looks like I'm just going to roll through this and then we can circle back to it for clarification or any additional conversation we need to have around it. But right now, for the task force and where they sit in terms of what would be a recommendation to the committee, 372823 section 5, it looks like we have 100%. 5 out of 6 people have responded. So 5 out of 6 would support that particular legislation going forward for consideration at the legislature this year. Y'all stop me. Anybody stop me? Point out anything that I'm missing or we need to circle back to right away. Then 372823 5A. It looks like we have 100%. This is from, I think this is your team, Jean, isn't it? This was
Yes.
okay. So if I miss something in here, just flag it for me and make sure that I don't miss anything. All right. So this section 5A is the insertion of the language that if there is a comparison school district that's under federal or state required remediation plan, due to the disproportionate identification of students with disabilities, the authorizer has to consider the impact of that during its annual evaluation of the school. And that's a paraphrase. 100% are in support of that. Then we have 372823 8D. That was a recommended amendment language in there. A charter school shall give an enrollment preference to underserved children as defined in section 3728.5 until it used to say to ensure, and the recommendation was to insert language until the charter school meets its required annual underserved composition. Looks like we don't have 100% there, but about 80% are in favor of moving forward with that recommendation. Anybody have anything there? Okay. All right, we'll keep moving then. 372821. We have 5 responses here. It looks like a 60-40 split. This is the language that would increase the initial charter from 5 years to 10 years under subsection 1 there, and subsection 2A is the authorizer shall adopt a performance framework. That's also 80-20. And then in the same code section, subsection 3, the authorizer may, and delete the word may, insert the word shall, adopt rules establishing reasonable pre-opening. And that one's 60-40 as well. Okay. We had some 80-20s and 60-40s. 372845D. I think this entire section, Katie, was related to your team's work with Elise, wasn't it? I lost Katie.
No, that's my tendency to talk on mute.
Stop doing that. Okay, so was this not y'all's section, the 37, 28, 45, and there were subsections D, E, F, G, O, and P? Weren't those a part of y'all's recommendations?
Yeah, I was
Last meeting.
trying to pull it open.
It was
to look at 45.
the sections like, let's see, 37.353 required publication of the Mississippi Report Card.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought these were your sections. So each one of those little subsections then, is there anything in that area that you want to reflect on or talk about? We did last time, but you can see where the results landed here in this particular area.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I think, I would just say from the discussion in our group, these are the sections, especially as we talk about E and F
Mhm, mhm.
and G, that really feel like these are the sections where it feels like the law most impedes on our autonomy in ways that are meaningful to school leaders, where they'd really like the opportunity to have different policies in place rather than expelling students. And I think to us as Republic schools, but also to I think the other group members of the group really felt like this is a place where it's especially right for schools to be able to make those local decisions and really work with their students and families. And I think this prevents that right now. So I think for us, this is a really challenging section, and really, we think it's very important, at least on some of those subsections. I would say there's reasons that I would really advocate for the other subsections, but I think for those that I just named, it's really important because we're just not able to exercise our autonomy, where this would be one of those places that it seems like it would be most appropriate.
Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, but was this not the section that we talked about during the last meeting, that because these were perhaps tied to other code sections, that we might need to do another, there was discussion around this, that we might need to put this particular section with all these subsections under it off until we could get further research done on each one of those and make better recommendations and consider some different rationale for?
Yeah, I think specifically that came up with regards to subsection O, probably O, maybe P, maybe D. But I think it didn't come up so much when we were talking EFG.
Okay. All right, that's helpful for everybody, I hope, as we make these final decisions then. 37, 28, 47, where did we land there, Jordan? 60, 40 again on this one. And this one is to actually increase the number of teachers that a charter school may have exempt from the state licensure requirements. So go from 25%, where it says no more than 25% may be exempt, and increase that to 50%. And then there was some strike all language in the rest of that code section, 37, 28, 47, 1A. And that's it for the ones that would actually impact the schools. So I know that was a really quick overview and a lot of information to digest. So I think I'll just open the floor up then for discussion now that you've seen the survey results. Gonna kind of get a sense of what you guys are thinking and feeling in terms of final recommendations and your rationale to provide to the legislative committee.
So Lisa, have we heard yet what the appetite might be for the legislature to take up charter school discussions this year? Because I know that, initially before the survey came out, we talked about like the areas that were most impactful. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of areas that I voted no on that I would actually like to see us address, but in the terms of priorities, it wasn't as high for me as, some of the others that are absolute. And right. I think, around the disability and the enrollment, that is directly negatively impacting, a particular school right now. So, to me, like that is the highest priority right. on the list. Right. But have we had any feedback on what the appetite might be?
No, and we've said all along that we feel a sense of I don't want to say timidity, but just apprehension maybe around opening code sections that could potentially end up somewhere we don't want to end up. So I think we agreed early on that whatever we do take, we want to feel 100% all on board, same song, same, sheet of music, and speaking the same language when we do take it to the legislature, so that we're not one group saying one thing and one group saying another. Not that we have to have 100% agreement, because I think we decided to, unless there was really a need to take a vote, we would do our best work by consensus. But as far as an appetite, I think there's some good news in that we're probably not on the top of their radar, and that's probably good in some ways and not good in others. Ms. Remack, you may have a sense differently. Jean, you may have another sense with your experience at the department, but I didn't hear. I listened to MEC. I listened to Senator DeBar and Mr. Bennett, or Representative Bennett, both speak at MEC's their Capitol Day this past week, and neither of them mentioned charter schools at all. The main thing that they seem to be concerned with, and rightfully so, teacher pay raises across the board, some early childhood work, some relief for us, which is great and we need, around MAEP with respect to ADA and not holding us, accountable for attendance last year. So that's some good news. All of those things I think are good. And career tech, maybe on workforce development. That's just off the top of my head, kind of their priorities, what I'm thinking. But I didn't hear anything about charters at all, or school choice in general. So now I don't know, Elise is not on here right now, but I don't know what they're thinking in terms of anything that they may be presenting legislative, to the legislature. I know they're working on some things, but I don't know if they're around school choice. So I haven't heard. Jean, you have any thoughts?
I totally agree with what you said. Pretty much. That,
Okay.
yeah, that's my same impression. I don't think this is a hot topic at all this year.
Yeah.
With all the other things that are going on.
Yeah. I have reached out to Representative Bennett. I have not heard back from him about trying to schedule some time to go over any final, technical amendments that we end up taking before them or bringing before them for consideration, but I haven't heard back from him yet. Christy, have you heard anything out in your world?
I have not. I've just heard a couple of leaders talk about, this is not going to be a normal legislative time. And if there was something that could wait until next year, then they would like to see that because, of the business they're going to have to take up this year. That is non-traditional. But now that's not official. That's just what I've heard someone say, a couple of folks say.
Okay. I see Elise just popped on, so maybe she's heard something and she can add some.
Hey y'all, can you
Yeah.
hear me?
We can. Thanks for being here. We were just talking about were your ears burning?
They must have been.
No, we were just talking about maybe you knew and had a sense of what the temperature is over at the Capitol with respect to anything around school choice and or these, the charter schools in general.
Yeah, I actually, I was down at the Capitol this morning and was talking to Richard Bennett actually just about education legislation in general. And he mentioned that he was expecting an email from you.
I've texted him. I hadn't emailed him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so in my conversations with legislators thus far, I can't say that we have talked specifically about school choice, but there is definitely interest in virtual learning potentially, and a number of things related to helping schools out as a result of obviously the effects of COVID. The sense that I've gotten from everyone, unfortunately, is that they are hoping to get in and out this session, and they're pretty focused and don't want to deal, in some of their words, with anything controversial, which seems to be the case every year. But I think especially this year, just due to they're not going to be meeting together a lot will be online.
Yeah.
So anyway, he at least coming from my meeting with Richard Bennett, he just in general expressed support for charter schools and hoping to see more of them, but we didn't. He didn't say anything more specific about whether or not he thought there was going to be a possibility of making revisions in the session.
Okay.
So if that's helpful, that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of the sense of what we all had in general. Christy kind of alluded to some of that, and that was kind of our thinking, Jean and my thinking, that there were certain things on their agenda, and we really weren't on their agenda or on their radar to speak up. Not to say that they wouldn't consider any technical amendments that we put forth. So before you got here, we did an introduction. I don't know if you can see everybody from your gallery view or not, but Kimberly Remack, if you can wave somewhere wherever you are to say hello to Elise. Kimberly is our newest board member, and she is the chair of our legislative committee that we formed actually in response to the task force to take the place of the performance and accountability committee. I'm getting task force and committee interchange today, but the legislative committee, she'll chair that, and then she and Jean and Mr. Billingsley will actually take the recommendations from the task force, finalize them, and decide yay or nay, we are going to take these, to the legislature for consideration.
Nice to meet you, Kimberly.
Nice to meet you too, and happy to work with our legislatures to try to get these amendments, proposed amendments taken care of. So yes, happy to be with you today. And listen, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna pop off here and let you guys continue to discuss and make your changes and keep making progress.
Thank you so much. We will have some final recommendations for you to take to your committee then after we finish deliberations and get to consensus or a vote on these things.
Okay. Wonderful. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for taking time.
Sure. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay. All right. Elise, the other thing we had done, we took a very quick overview of the results. We have 5 out of 6 people on the committee that have actually responded to the survey, so we don't have 100%. And we can, based on, Chrissy, on your question, we might want to circle back to them and go, yes, we absolutely need to take all of 37, 28, 23. Yes, it needs to go. 43 yes, 21 yes, 45 no. I mean, get to some sort of consensus based on the results, if that works for y'all. I can't hear y'all shaking your heads.
I'm not 100% clear what you just proposed. Say that again. The different sections.
I think go back.
Sections.
Okay, I think go back. Maybe Elise wasn't here, so she missed out on the overview of everything. So maybe run back through those, and as we go through them this time, based on where we fell, whether we were 50-50 or 60-40 or 80-20, make a decision. Do we want to go forward? Try to get to consensus on it. We don't have everybody here. I wish we did, but get to consensus the best we can, and then wherever we land, then the committee will take it from there.
That sounds good to me.
Does it make us okay? And then the committee will actually put their final touches on it. You guys, as the committee, will decide based on what the recommendations. Do we want to go down this path or not this year?
Okay.
So y'all will have the final say. All right. Does that work for everybody else? Okay. All right, Jordan, let's pop back in, or let's do it this way maybe. So can we pull up the other document. I'm trying to pull them up and I don't have control. Yes, pull up that one and walk through them this way and then see where we landed. I think this one was 100%, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go.
Let me try to screen share in a different way. I might can get the two documents side by
I'm going to pull mine up and see if I can do it while you're doing that. Okay, I got it. All right, Jordan, if you want to share the other one, I've got mine pulled up and I can tell you guys where the summary results landed. 37, 28, 23, 5. Okay. All right. 37, 28, 23, section 5. Is that right? 100% of our responses were in favor of taking this to the committee. So that one's kind of an easy one. And then if you want to scroll down, the next one, that insertion, the language there on 5A was 100%. So that's an easy one too. And Jordan, if you want to type in a yes or 100% or something while we're going through it, it'll make it easier than having two documents. Somewhere underneath each, like in the center. Do you see? Yep, right there. If you want to put 100% up, Tamala's here now. Okay, so I'm letting Tamala in. All right, 5A, then 28, 23, 8D. This is an area we probably need to have a little discussion about. It wasn't 100%, so we don't have general consensus there. But again, we're missing one person who has not responded to the survey. But this is the amendment. It was, or an amend the language there. A charter school shall give enrollment preference to underserved children as defined in 3728. 5 until the charter meets its required annual underserved student composition, and then the charter school may give enrollment preference after the charter school meets its required underserved student composition. So open the floor there. If anybody wants to give rationale for or discussion about, and then we can decide, do we want to move forward with that or not?
I believe I voted against this one because of the last sentence that was added, and maybe just, I'm not clear about it, but it made it seem like some new preference category could be introduced. So I was fine with everything up until the last sentence that was added to it.
I think based on our discussion, what it's saying is that the school has to provide the preference up until, let's say, the school's in a district where they would need to enroll 63% students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. They would have to provide the preference until that time. And then after that, they hit that target, they could continue to provide that same preference or not. That would be the choice marker, is that those identified preferences could continue to fill the whole class, or could only fill the amount of students necessary to meet the target.
Okay, so if that last sentence read, the charter school may give an enrollment preference to underserved children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't read it that way. I just read it like could give an enrollment preference, and then you can just make up what you want that preference to be, some completely different preference.
That's how I read it too, Jean, and I didn't vote on it, but I read it the same way that you did.
What if it had something the language just tweaked a little bit to make it clearer, so that it says once this required annual composition, underserved student composition is met, it is the discretion of the charter school whether to give an enrollment preference or something like that, so it's clear that once that's met, it's in the discretion of the charter school to do it or not, you know. Does that make it more clear? Does that still make it unclear about it's a different group or something, enrollment group?
I think if you said what you said, but said may continue to give the same preference.
Yeah, the same,
Right.
the same,
It
the
would be
same group.
clear.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I have one question about that too. In this section, you know, we talked about the definition of the underserved student. What I don't want to happen as a result of this is that when we go out to do our visits and we're, you know, looking at data, that we have difficulty defining or figuring out what that percentage is and who we're talking about when we talk about underserved. Are we talking about the special needs population or the free lunch population? Or because that language is defined, it's still not very clear. So I don't want to lock us into a situation where when we do our annual visits or site visits that we as the authorizer don't know what it is that we're looking at. So if we can clear that up, that would be helpful. Does that make sense, Katie? I see you looking at both back and forth. Is that?
I was just trying to pull
Yeah.
it up. Yeah.
I'm even wondering why this even needs to change now. I know I was in this group, but now, like, given that we're going around like this, what was wrong with it the way it was? What was, you,
Well, I think we've actually seen this potentially come up, and it hasn't been an issue it hasn't been a real issue for us. And so honestly, I can't even remember the way, like I would vote to have some wording change, but it wasn't absolute for me. But it really was more around students with IEPs, because if you have a rolling waiting list and you always have students with IEPs, every opening that you have come open in the school, you would
Drop down.
potentially have to take every child with an IEP. So you want to be very careful that you don't end up with a school that is, you know, majority IEPs just because of the way that this is written, particularly in a smaller school. I think this would be more impactful.
And Christy, I think that's why I was saying it's a little problematic for us because it doesn't really define that it's IEP kids or free lunch kids or whatever. So that was a section that was a little tricky for me.
And I mean, the last thing we want to say, obviously, is that IEP students are not welcome. I mean, that's not at all what we were saying. It was just a little more clarity around, you know, what the percentage of underserved that we would need to respond. But like I said, it wasn't even, I would be fine with the wording change, and I would be fine with it not being a priority this year.
Can we go back and rethink this section simply through the work of the performance framework as opposed to legislation so that we don't get it?
Yeah, I would say because it's vague right now, as long as there's clarity from the board in writing on how it views it, I think that would be helpful. I don't know about Tamala, you, or Christy or Elise, but I think just clarity from the board might be the right movement right now.
Yeah, I agree with that, Katie.
Okay.
me too.
Tamala?
Hey, good afternoon, y'all. I'm here and listening. I didn't hear that discussion, so I don't want to weigh in on it. I do have a question, though. For each of these, are we looking for 100% on each of them before we decide to move forward with them, or majority?
No, I think we were just looking for consensus in general, but we've been having some discussion about it based on the results. So
Okay.
We're just trying to get to the best point of consensus that we can get to without having to take a vote. And I think you transitioned in right when Kimberly was moving off, and we do have the legislative committee that will
Mhm.
take
I saw
up this work after the task force is finished, and then they'll make the final call on whether it goes to the legislature or not for consideration.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of where we are.
Okay.
But if you guys are okay with wrapping this around the work of the framework as opposed to legislatively, it almost feels like if we go here, we've got to go back to the definition of underserved children and go back to that language in the contract and the tables to get some more clarity around that before we go into the law.
Sorry, just to clarify, y'all are saying that the board, if through the performance framework, the board can actually clarify this section and it doesn't need to be done statutorily?
Yeah, I think that's what we were saying, Katie. Is
Okay.
that what you?
Yeah, well, I don't, maybe in the performance framework, I'm thinking potentially just in like a template for the recruitment and enrollment plan or whatever, but some place where it's clear that we are operating on the same wavelength of how we're interpreting this and
Yeah.
the flexibility it gives.
And I do think we've got to look back at the language under 5 where they define underserved student.
Yeah.
Because remember, we pulled that out, and some of those definitions were all clumped into one. So it was like EL, population, free lunch, and special ed.
This one just, well, and I think the reason for that, it says students participating in the federal free lunch program who qualify for at-risk student funding under the MAP and students who are identified as having special educational needs. So they're very vague, right? Because I don't know what special educational needs includes. So I think let's start with just clarification between the board and the schools on how we're viewing that and getting to common ground.
Agreed. And Jordan, right there, you might want to put framework / guidance, something, so that we kind of know where we're headed with that one.
Lisa, really quickly, how is that defined currently? Is it students with IEPs and students who get free lunch?
Yeah, but you know what, Elise, when you go into the framework, there's a whole entire section right now before the revision of the new framework. There's an entire section in there about the number of students that are served by an IEP. So you actually look at that percentage. So let's say, Jackson has 10% population, then the schools located in Jackson would have to have 8%. And that's on the framework, and that's based on your contracted terms with an enrollment projection table. Underneath the enrollment projection is a special ed table. So it's not real clear anywhere. Did I answer your question or make it worse?
No, thanks. That's maybe both. But
yeah,
it seems. No, I was just gonna say it seems like that's a pretty important point of clarity, but it does seem like the board likely or maybe feels that it has freedom to kind of define that further, or is there does the board see it as a statutory change as needed?
Well, I don't think I can speak for the board at all on whether they're going to need to see this as a statutory change. If I were making any calls, I would say you would go to the definition first, clean the definitions up, then clean up the statutory language and clean up the contract following. But we didn't go down that road, and we just picked out this particular subsection of the law and started trying to tweak it. So without convoluting the issue even more, it feels like a place that we could go back to the drawing board and come up with some sort of consensus around, like Katie was saying, around the language, and maybe working it through the framework. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. No, that I just thought that seems pretty important if there's a lack of clarity there, and it's something that's affecting schools daily, but it may not be. And
well, yeah. And Katie, you and Christy can chime in there. Tamala, whether it's impacting you daily or not, I think it was. I think there was maybe some challenges. I know at Midtown. I don't want to speak for Kevin, but I think he had some challenges where he was having to drop down his list of eligible children to find out when to pick up the next child in order to meet his numbers, right? So there was some, I don't know, maybe some ambiguity around all of that, and not real clarity, and a need for that. So I don't think you can answer it statutorily until you get into that definition piece, though. Katie, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So to circle back on consensus moving forward, or just through this, are we all okay with this approach right now? If you're not, let me know. Okay. All right, well, let's move on then. Okay, 37, 28, 21. I forgot I'm supposed to be scrolling too. That is 60-40. Oh, Jordan's got hers up too.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so 60-40 here on section 1. And that is the language around increasing the initial charter contract. And there are 60% of the respondents who thought that was, an appropriate action to take. So again, open the floor for any feedback, rationale, discussion around that.
I'll just advocate for it. I think it's helpful, especially Lisa, I'm just thinking about launching a high school and knowing the trappings we're in with our high school here in Tennessee, which oddly we do have 10-year charter terms here. It's just that we opened our high school on one of our other charters, and we opened it 5 years into the charter term. So we're now facing renewal, looking at a 5-year term, and the board has very limited data, especially because of what happened over the last year. And so it's very difficult to operate, I think, both at the earlier grades and collegiate, and for us, so the elementary, and at the high school level, and within 5 years have sufficient data for the board to make a decision about renewal, simply because we don't start testing. We have MCAS, but we really don't start standardized testing until 3rd grade. And so you have very limited data. We haven't, really gotten those classes in. And then with the high school, you haven't really gotten the opportunity, because graduation data lags a year, to have a full picture of your school's performance until after that 5th year. So I would continue to advocate for it. I think high stakes reviews are important, but I think it being the renewal review is a little challenging, and it ends up limiting choice, because nobody wants to open a school that they're going to have to apply for renewal in 5 years without complete data.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have comments or thoughts around that?
I don't know how much I have to add, but just I think this and the teacher provision to me are the sections that, or the changes that would have the most significant impact, not just on schools currently, but the charter sector. To me, it's very much a sector focused amendment. And like Katie gave all of the reasons, but just because it would give a level of confidence to people coming into the system, and to those and to current operators, that they are able, I'm sorry if it's loud, y'all, I'm near some people, that they would have time to succeed. And I, in a conversation with a legislator this morning, that sentiment was echoed, and I'm starting to hear that more from legislators who are just saying, we should really be reasonable about charter schools and give them some time, because they are serving a largely underserved population, and we want to be understanding of that. And I don't know that that was the case. I wasn't here, but I don't know that that was the case when the law was first passed. So I think maybe there is kind of a greater sense of these are good things and they need to be given a chance to succeed. And I think that would really set Mississippi apart, as a Mississippi's charter sector apart in some really good ways. My input.
Yeah, it would definitely set us apart because Jordan, if you can scroll over there to the right-hand side, you can see I reached out just to some of my colleagues around the nation just to get a sense of what other folks were doing. And I just copied and pasted in their exact responses. And you can see that the majority of them operate right now under 5-year terms with, obviously options to increase those terms after renewals and so forth. In fact, one of them recommended specifically that we did not change. So I wanted to make sure that the committee or the task force and everybody and the committee now, actually everybody has kind of a sense of where the standard practice is around the nation, because like you said, if we were to go down this path, it would certainly set us apart. I know Tennessee does do a 10-year initial, but that's not a recommended best practice in terms of what NACSA would recommend or the National Alliance either. So just an FYI for everybody, because you spoke to one legislator, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to feel that way. And if we go down this path, we're going to have to all be able to articulate the rationale and the research to support it, not just to be able to say, yeah, we think it's a great idea, because, we'll have to be able to justify our ask, or we're not going to get anywhere with it. And knowing that these other states don't recommend that and don't go down that path, that they'll do their homework as well. So we'll have to be able to say, this is our rationale, this is our story, and we're sticking to it, and here's why.
I do know the way that NACSA, at least in the past, has responded to terms that are longer than 5 years is expecting to see that interim review at the 5-year point. And so they've been a little bit looser on whether the contract term itself has to be 5 years. And I think it's, at least when I was still more active with NACSA, it was kind of a way to get around that 5-year term. I'll just repeat everything that I said. I think Elise's point that it can result in a more robust charter sector. I think you've seen that across the country. So again, I advocate for it. I think especially as we think about opening elementary levels, opening high school levels, that's where it's going to have the biggest impact and encourage the most growth.
Yeah. One of the things I did ask whenever I was reaching out to my colleagues, I asked specifically, have you seen different models for contracts? So let's go back to the elementary. So we know that if we open a K-5 or a K-6, we're not really going to see any data, substantive data outside of MCAS maybe for, reading, and then not till 3rd grade and after. So have you seen modified or charters for K-5 and different charters for K-3 operators or contracts? I'm saying charters, but one it would exchange for the other. So have you seen the differentiated number of years in terms of an initial contract? And the one person that responded to that, most everybody said no, and the one person that responded adamantly said absolutely do not go down that path. That would be a bad idea. So I was thinking it might be a great idea to give some, longer terms to some of the others initially, and then stick with maybe 5-year terms for this group or, whatever. And so that was their answer.
Yeah. And I voted no on this one, mainly because of the notes and the feedback from the that are in that column on the right. And also the timing of this, the charter law is still fairly new-ish here in Mississippi, and I don't know if there's going to be an appetite to change it at this point, given what we said about what the priorities are of the legislature this session. So while this might be a good idea, it seems like this is not the time to sell it, and it seems like we need more research and rationale for it. So I could be persuaded otherwise, but I just don't think it's gonna fly right now. So
yeah.
Well, and I really had the same thoughts, Lisa. And I was just going by what's happening in the other states, aside from Tennessee and a couple other. But I will say that 5 years, it is really challenging, and Midtown has had its challenges, and you're not even talking about really 5 years of data. You're talking about 4 years, which includes opening up from scratch. So, whereas a charter management company who already has some experience running schools at a larger scale has it under their belt. A new group starting out, you're talking about really needing to have some great data right out of the gate, or you can already cross off year one. I mean, it takes a good year or two to really put things in place and get in your rhythm. And I do think that the data also shows that you can't judge a charter school in the first
Right.
year or two
Right.
necessarily. So I again, like Jean, I think it would be great to explore this more, but I voted no, and that was the reason, was just based on what the other states are doing, not
Okay.
necessarily that
Yeah.
that's the way to go.
Okay, thank you for that, Christy. Anybody else have a comment?
Yeah, Lisa and everyone, I'll chime in here. I voted yes for it. And like Katie, I advocate for it. I mean, we're trying to make charter schools and the charter sector and charter space attractive in Mississippi. And while I see and certainly respect what the other states have said here, I just wonder how very similar their demographics are to Mississippi and what they're doing in their charter space there. I like the idea of the review in the 5-year period to see exactly how the charter school is performing. And then I think about the kind of backlash that the MCSAB get when a contract is renewed when a school is not doing well. And to everyone's point, it just takes a while. I mean, charter schools have different dynamics that we deal with than an established, even traditional public school district who probably has been failing for the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years. But when you think about what happens in the first 2 to 3 years with a charter school and how that is totally different, now that charter school is just getting its footing. But when the MCSAB gets flack about, hey, they renewed this school and this school has been a D for the last 3 years, having a longer contract period could potentially, not necessarily, eliminate some of that negative opinion about what charter schools are doing and understanding that. So I just wanted to add my little 2 cents to it, and I voted for it and would support it. But I know that's goes to another committee after this one.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything that was different. I would just say I think this needs to be a priority for Mississippi, although I certainly understand some of the, just hesitation to jump right in at this moment, just because, and I just want to remind everyone the legislators have to request bills by tomorrow and they have to be introduced by Monday. So this is all, happening pretty quickly. So I think, for there to be a level of comfort in a short amount of time, I guess that's a priority. But I do think, regardless of whether it's this year or we take the time to kind of look at it and build consensus for next year, that this is just a key piece for the charter sector. And I think even though most states with a charter law don't have an extended charter term, that the states that do have robust charter sectors, and we could look at them and learn a lot from them. And I think, obviously Mississippi's a different state from other states. So while there might be best practices from NACSA, I think we've got to look at it from a Mississippi perspective too and say, what are our greatest challenges for the charter sector? And if it's, if this is a big deterrent, which I think anecdotally we know it is, but sure we could do more research, then this is something that I think definitely needs to stay on the table and could have a significant impact on the sector as a whole. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anybody else comment before we try to get to consensus? It's a 60-40. Again, we don't have everybody's vote, but to say, yes, we need to hold off, or we should go ahead and move forward with this ask for this year. I'm not going to make the call on this. I'm looking to the task force for some solid consensus one way or the other on how to move forward. So
Has anybody changed their opinion, or are we all kind of sit in the same place?
You know, I mean, again, this is one of those for me that was kind of in the middle. So I could certainly change it. I don't feel strongly about a no at all. It was not, if we were going to look at only attacking 2 this year, like it just wasn't in that top, 2 tier. But I could certainly see, and, I mean, we've seen the impact at Midtown directly of a 5-year, non-charter organization, CMO leading us. So, I mean, I could change mine to a yes and feel comfortable with that as well.
I'm just going to make one more comment, and then we'll try to move on and get consensus one way or the other. I will say what I think I said last time, and that kind of piggybacks on what Elise just said. Our time is not our friend this year. We had so many things going on, and trying to get this ball carried to the finish line is going to be a tough one. So if we can, with consensus, get to maybe a top 3 ask for the schools this year, then maybe that's where we need to land this year. And then consider, a lot of research, doing not just research among ourselves, but research among other charter sectors, among stakeholders, among legislators, really do some internal polling, external polling, to get a sense of where we need to go next year. Maybe that's the better approach. A slow and steady, the front burner issues take care of first. What is giving charter schools right now the most pain points for you? Where can we get those fixes this year? Again, just some food for thought.
I like that approach, given the time frame. I mean, this needs to go over to the legislature tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Well, I think we can, I think that's part of it. If we're introducing new legislation, I think that's correct. Elise, am I right? Are you still there? I know she has to hop off.
Yeah. It's just for new legislation, not technical amendments?
I think that's right. And I haven't looked at the calendar closely, Jean, so I don't know for sure. We might be able to ask Pete and see.
Yeah, I'll check.
Thank you. I think that we're talking technical amendments later on can be introduced. They can be, they're, I don't want to say something I don't know for sure, but yeah, so we'll wait and see what he says. But I feel like this is introducing new legislation, like new bills, not opening up a code section. The first 2 deadlines on the calendar. Vanda, if you can go to the legislative website. On the right-hand side, typically there's a calendar. It'll say a calendar of events, and it'll give a full calendar of the entire session, like deadlines for new bills, deadlines for appropriation bills, deadlines for this and that, in this side of the house, that side of the house, and you might be able to find out something while Jean's trying to text Pete. Having said that, moving on, if we can, to get consensus here, would the majority of you feel like this is an area that we need to reflect on a little bit more, or are we ready to go out and push this forth to the committee?
Can we hold on that and discuss the next ones? And
Yeah.
I think I'd like to talk about the other ones.
Sure. Sure. Yep. I think there's one embedded in this one. So that's one, maybe 2A. I can't see it. Jordan's got the microscope on. I can't see exactly what it says. 2A, is that right, Jordan?
Yes, that's right, 2A. And I'm trying to zoom in a little for you.
Thank you. Elise just came back in, so she may have an answer for us.
I think 2A, what it looks like is just the addition of language that the authorizer shall adopt a performance framework to define.
Yeah, but wasn't there something else built into the first section? Yes, may delay the opening for 2 years versus 1 year. So just want to make sure we point that out, that was in that section. Yep. All right, so 2A then, we are 80-20, so everybody feel good about that? Taking it to the committee?
I think we should, I would like to wait if we can on all of those to talk about the next bigger sections.
Okay, all right. So skip 3 too?
Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying like making a final decision because if this is going to be a big one. So I like, to me, the removal of maybe D, E, and F, 45, E, F, and G.
Okay,
I would prefer that to kind of go as a group. And to me, that's a higher priority than some of the other ones.
okay,
Because that's had some real impacts on our school and school discipline systems this year. And so to me, having the discretion not to expel a student when you know, whatever, I just would prefer that.
okay. All right, well, we can talk about that. We can hop down and go into E, F, and G under that subset or under that section 3728. I think that's 45. And talk about that. I think we're split on most of those. So Katie, if you want to, I don't know that there's any, I know you've shared your thoughts on restorative justice and the need for autonomy and the need for the schools to be able to make a decision on expelling and suspending students. So if we can, I guess, come back together and get a consensus.
And the thing that I would say is if we're narrowing down, to me, what I would say is I would love for us to take, again, E, F, and G together as one comprehensive package.
Yep.
Just around autonomy. I'm willing on the other ones to wait. I think they would be less controversial. Because this one is really, again, like I said, opening up the doors. It's not saying we can't expel students. It's saying like we can or cannot, but right now we're forced to in a way that's, I think, really destructive to some of our community values.
So Katie, can I clarify this then? If we said E, F, and G, we would want to list these under the code sections that charter schools are exempt from, as opposed to not exempt from.
I would like it removed from saying we are not exempt from these.
Yeah.
We would like to be exempt from these.
Right.
So that we can make our own policies relating to expulsion of students, especially around damaging school property, disruptive.
But bringing a gun to school.
I think bringing the gun to school is federal law, so that wouldn't be, but I don't believe that substances is federal law. And that was one where we've been required to, even when a student's possessing with no intent to sell, not using on campus. And so that to me is one that, I think
Well, this one does say requires the automatic expulsion of a student possessing a weapon or controlled substance on educational property. So would we need to separate that one?
I don't think you need to, because we're already required by federal law to have the the safe school zones. So I think it's repetitive right now of federal law. And we couldn't get out of that anyways. So I think if you just removed the whole thing, federal law would still apply to us.
By the way, tomorrow is the deadline, Pete said, for introducing technical amendments.
Shoot.
They need to be tomorrow for introduction, needs to be drafted tomorrow. And and the legislative calendar says it's the deadline for making requests for general bills and constitutional amendments. And I don't see the word technical so I don't know if that means the same thing as a technical amendment.
I wouldn't think so. I was thinking technical amendments were different than introduction of general bills. But I'm not the expert. I'm not the expert. Pete is. So then let's try to get to some closure on this as quickly as possible so that we can take, Jean, you can take back to the committee the final recommendations from the task force to the committee, and then we can craft up the language we need to, and I can get it over to the Capitol tomorrow.
Yep.
I haven't heard back. I keep getting the text, but they're not not from anywhere from Representative Bennett. So, all right.
Tamala or Christy? How do y'all feel about that?
So, I mean, it hasn't been a direct result for Midtown, but I could certainly see, where it would be nice to have the flexibility. We've just been very fortunate under those circumstances. Again, I haven't seen a direct impact for us, and so that's kind of what my view is. I think I probably voted no on this just because of that, because there were some other higher priorities. But I could easily say yes, because I do see how it has impacted some others, and I don't think that it would be as controversial. I agree with that as some of the others that we have on the list. And so, are we saying that E would just be removed altogether because it's under federal and would not be applicable here anyway?
Does the weapon part, yeah. So I think if we were just asked to completely remove from this section, subsections E, F, and G, and the rationale being, schools, charter schools, were intended to create the autonomy to address issues, in a way that meets the needs of their communities. And right now this limits us from being able to adopt practices like restorative justice. And, I could write other things, but ultimately this provides charter schools more autonomy to serve more students more equitably.
Totally agree. I mean, of course, it hasn't affected us yet being 100% virtual, but in preparation for it, I definitely agree. And of course, our whole mindset and mission is to keep kids in school as much as possible. So whatever we can do to make that happen.
Okay, are we then in agreement from the practitioners here that this is the E, F, and G are ones that we want to ask for relief on this year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see one. Yes, two.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Put a yes out there, Jordan, and let's roll. Thank you. All right. And the next one is 2847 1. Is that right? 1A.
Yeah.
Yep. 1A. Yep. All right. This one is 60/40 also, and this is the one that would give more flexibility to the schools in terms of being able to have a higher percentage of their teachers not highly qualified or certified.
And I voted no on this, but I think I could switch mine back to a yes because I misread it. I forgot that the first sentence took care of the teacher requirements. I was stuck on the last part where it says teachers didn't have to demonstrate the subject matter competency. And
Okay.
I forgot that whole discussion we had that was taken care of in that first sentence because,
Okay.
so you could put me back to the yes, which would,
Okay.
I guess, make it 70/30, if that helps.
Yeah, and I think I voted no against this, even though it highly impacts us, just because the enrollment piece was a real priority. So, I was going at this from the context of, kind of having the top 2 or 3, from a priority standpoint, but I think I voted no. So probably between Jean and I, that pushes that percentage up.
Okay. So then, can we do a rank order in terms of priorities now? And then that way we'll know which ones we really want to take because we've got consensus on several. And if we can get a rank order, then we'll know exactly which ones Jean needs to take to the committee. All right.
While we're getting ready to do this, I have a question, Lisa. So Jean is going to take this information to the committee today to submit the information that's due tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll have all this ready, and then I will actually take it to the legislature. The committee will decide. I've got a text out to Representative Bennett right now to figure out when he and I can meet, and I can take it over and drop it off either at his office. I don't technically have to meet with him. Take the proposed language over, which is what I did last year. It just never made it to. But we did a fingerprinting piece last year, which it never made it to the committee. They didn't take it up in committee at all.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
yeah. All right. So, Jordan, you have your list there. Do you want to start a separate list or a priority?
I was thinking I could highlight what is going to be what we're taking.
Okay, perfect. All right, Jean, what do you need from us?
So are you going to rank the top 3 or
I think we should.
select?
Yeah, I think we should. Now that we've got consensus on some, maybe rank the top 3 and see where they fall. And if everybody feels good about all of them, we'll go forward. Of course, we will have some for the authorizer board as well.
I would put my top, it's hard, but I would put revisions to 45 as my number 1, revisions to 47 as my number 2, revisions to 23 as my top 3rd, and then the term as my 4th, so 21.
Would you put that in the chat box, Katie?
Yeah.
And then we can capture it easily that way. And then, Christy, if you want to do the same, put your top priorities in kind of in a rank order, and then we can pull out the top 3 and see where we land. I apologize for this being such a laborious process, but I think it's important that we hash out, the details and the process and know exactly what, where we land, that's where we want to be, and we want to be there together. So.
Can y'all hear me? This is Elise.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on my phone and trying to drive too. I was just going to say, someone may have said this, but I cut out, but as long as Richard has a placeholder in by tomorrow, he doesn't technically need all the language until Monday. But he would need to know, hey, we're definitely putting something in. Please reserve a spot for it by tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I did message him this morning, but I haven't heard back from him to let him know that we would have some. When could I meet with him? So we can, if you can help there, and I'm happy to, continue hounding him here, see if we can get him to hold us something.
Sure, I can let him know too, in case that helps.
That'll help a lot, because if he hears from both of us, that'll be great. Okay, I'm putting some rank orders here. Okay, let's see. We've got 47, 45, 21, 45, 47, 23, 21. Okay. And then Katie, Tamala, and Christy, you want to do yours? Because it looks like 47 and 45 are coming in at the top 2 right now. Did we lose Christy?
No, I'm here.
Okay. You were just quiet.
Sorry, I'm looking at my sheet here.
That's okay. Go ahead. Take your time. I know this is kind of laborious. It's really hard to do over Zoom too. And Elise, it's probably super hard for you on the phone in the car. Yeah, Jean, do you want to put your top 3 in there?
I don't really. I'd rather not, because
Okay.
I'm fine with representing the group. I'm not.
It's fine.
It's not directly affecting me, so I'd rather
Okay.
kind of on them,
Okay,
yeah.
that works.
Um,
Okay, so if I'm looking at these numbers, then it looks like 45 comes in at number 1, 45 and 47 are in the top 2, right? For everybody.
Yep.
Okay, so 45 and 47. Okay. Okay, easy enough. And then 45, 47, 20, 23 looks like it comes in next because I only see 21 once. Does that look right to y'all?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So 45, that is the applicability of rules, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And 47 is employment. And 23 is the student enrollment, composition, so forth and so on. Okay.
Sorry, Lisa, what did you just say? Which one only came in one?
I think it's 21 that only came in, 23 came in twice, 21 came in like at number 4 for one person and number 3 for you.
Okay.
Didn't come up at all from Christy as a priority. So can I say your priorities out loud? Are y'all okay with that? Okay, so Tamila's priority, 47 in order, 47, 45, and then 21. And then Katie's 45, 47, 23. And I'm going to skip your last one, Katie. So we're stick with top 3. Christy, 23, 45, 47. So 2 of the 3 responses have 23. Oh, she's all seeing it in the chat. Okay. I'm speaking it out. Y'all could have told me that before I started asking permission to share. Okay, because I have some private chats on here too, just so you know. I didn't want to reveal anybody's personal position on anything that didn't want to. So, okay, so if I'm not mistaken and I'm looking at it right, we've got the applicability of the statutes which include E, F, and G, right?
I have a question about 45 just before we move
Okay,
on. So those laws that we could possibly be proposing be removed from this list, or that the charters don't have to, they're exempt from.
Mhm.
Those laws apply to the other public schools, additional
That's
public
correct.
schools. Okay, so how are you going to sell this? Like
I
why
mean,
is this subset?
yeah. I honestly, like, I would hope this is the least controversial thing, which is like right now, traditional public schools can say, are in fact required to say, if you brought, some weed onto campus, you're expelled for a year. And the student is out of school or put into an alternative school for a year. We're actually asking for the ability to continue to serve those students, the students that are the highest need and the most at risk students. We're saying we want the flexibility not to kick them out. I would hope that's palatable.
And I don't disagree with that. This this needs to be looked at for all kids in all public schools.
Agreed.
I'm just wondering, how do we sell this for the charters specifically? Like, if all the other kids in public schools, all the other schools have to follow this law, what's the rationale we would give to say we want the charters to be exempt from this particular law? I mean, I know that there's a lot of laws like that the charters are exempt. But yeah, I guess I'm wondering what's the rationale behind it for the charters specifically?
I would think that it is, in Mississippi, the charter law is clear that, part of the intent is to serve underserved students. And these students, quite frankly, are a group of underserved students. And charter schools want to be able to serve them, but because of these laws are not able to serve the students. And so this is opening the door to charter schools serving more underserved students.
Okay.
I'm looking up, y'all, while you're talking, I'm looking up under the Department of Education, under the Safe and Orderly Schools. There's a school safety manual in here, and school safety, let me look here. So, okay, that's bylaws. Anyway, I was looking to see if any of these particular statutes that we're asking for relief from are actually under that federal law. Did you research that, Katie, just out of curiosity, before we go down this path and ask for it?
I did not. I just
Okay.
operated on my understanding that it's, yeah, my general understanding. I think it's just the weapons law that's.
We're just going to mention to y'all that the weapons one and the controlled substances, that does have a provision that says, provided, however, that the superintendent is authorized to modify the period of time
Yes.
case by case basis. So there is discretion in that statute. I'm just for your information.
That's true, and thank you for bringing that up, Avery. I'd forgotten all about that, because I think John, actually being John Ribka, had asked me about a suspension one time before, Katie, and that that came up, and I shared that document with them. The school safety manual does have some flexibility in it, and thank you for bringing that up, Avery. That's a great point.
Yeah, I would still, on our end, still say that it's important to us. I think having an expulsion on your record is a pretty nasty mark for anyone. And even if it's just an expulsion for one day, I think that being required to expel students for us is just really problematic.
Katie, can you clarify expulsion for one day? Because I think the definition of expulsion is you're expelled from school completely, 100%. Suspension is you are out of school for maybe 1 day or 3 days or 5 days. So not to convolute the two terms.
Yeah, and this, I mean, that's the problem with this, is it says requires automatic expulsion, requires expulsion, requires suspension is the only one, subsection G.
That requires suspension or expulsion of a student who damages school property. Avery, can you see if that one has any flexibility in it?
Yeah. That's 19.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is flexibility. You're not allowed to do anything until you do a behavior modification plan.
I was
So you
just
can't
gonna
exercise your
say.
authority to do it until you've set up a modification plan for the child.
And that is,
forces the school to put a plan in place to maybe deal with, to determine if there may be some other issues.
a manifestation determination is with respect to special needs children, because you're looking to see if the behavior is a manifestation of the disability.
Right, and that way they can have them get an IEP put in place and do some interventions.
But you can't do a manifestation of a determination of a disability if they're not already identified as a special ed child, because then when you do that, you're looking to see if there's a connection of their
Already identified.
to their behavior from their disability. So because I am identified as, let's say, a child with autism, I have made this, bomb threat. Did that bomb threat, is it a result of the fact that I'm autistic, or that I've been identified as learning disabled, or whatever? So those are really old laws, y'all. They go back, I don't know when can you tell when they were actually implemented, Avery?
Initially, the 18.1, which deals with the habitually disruptive, was 2001.
Mm-hmm.
One regarding expulsion for weapons and drugs was 1994. And then suspension or expulsion of a student damaging school property is 1942.
Oh.
And it hasn't been revised or amended since 1954.
And that's just the reason right there.
When I said they were old, I mean, I didn't realize they were like old as dirt.
Yeah, I mean, and then it says if willfully destroy, cut, deface, damage, or injure any school building, equipment, or other school property shall be liable to suspension or expulsion.
But the parents are also held liable for damages,
Mhm.
you know, which actually, as well they should, you know, they should have some way of assisting repair. But yeah, that is awfully old.
Yeah.
The 18.1, my opinion doesn't matter, but just noting that it does require that plan to be put in place, and it has been tinkered with and amended through 2010. And it does require that plan to be put into place within 2 weeks of the incident. The parent has to be involved in the plan. And then they only can do the expulsion after a third violation after the plan's been developed.
It's
So
messy.
it is a process, and that just for the record, just so you know.
Yep. Okay. Jean, did we answer your question or make it worse?
Yeah, no, you answered it. Yeah. I can see the rationale for relieving the charters from these laws that need help to begin with, but it seems like the laws need help to begin with, so as well, but that's a different matter. So
Okay. All right. So continuing on then, unless somebody else has something they want to say, 45, we're going to move forward with that ask, or we're going to move forward with the ask to the committee. You're going to take it to the committee for consideration, right? E, F, and G. Yep. Okay. 47 then is the qualifications of charter school employees. And I don't think we had any real ruffled feathers on either side, that we felt pretty good about that one. Everybody was comfortable with it. Okay.
Yep.
So that one's easy enough. We can take that, and our language is ready. All we've got to do is compile it onto one document for you, Jean. We can just put it all together. 23, student enrollment. And is that, when we say 23, are we saying 23, 5A, and 8D? Just to confirm.
I thought D was in question. But it was.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Thank you. D is the framework one. So just 25, 23, 5, and 5A.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that feels right. All right, anything else then for the good of the order with respect to these? And Jean, if you want to stay on, we can run through those other sections. And Avery, if you would hang out for just a minute, if you can, that'd be good. All right, anybody, Elise, are you still with us, or did she have to leave again? She must have had to leave. Okay, Katie, Christy, Tamala, y'all are all still there?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Do y'all have anything else before the rest of us get into the work of the authorizer? We have, I think, 4 sections that we're going to try to hash out and see what we need to do, if we need to take them to the committee. I mean, you're welcome to stay, but that they don't impact you directly.
Plenty of other things to do.
I bet you do. I bet you do. Okay. Well,
I appreciate it.
yeah, thanks so much for your input, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your work on this.
All right. Bye, Christy.